everyone. Welcome to our Ocean Month webinar talking about the threats and our moral call to respond. We are so delighted to have you. My name is Madison Mayhew, and I am the Policy and Advocacy Manager with Creation Justice Ministries. And I am joining you from the unceded lands of the Piscataway and the Susquehannock tribes, known today as Baltimore, Maryland. I invite you to share your name, where you're joining us from, your faith community, or whatever feels comfortable to share with the group. It's always nice to get a sense of who all is in the room. First, want to give thanks to all of our sponsors this evening, Creation Justice Ministries, Mennonite Central Committee, the Interfaith Working Group on Extractive Industries, Faith in the Ocean, Mary Knoll Office for Global Concerns, Missionary Society of St. Columban, National Religious Partnership for the Environment, and the NGO Mining Working Group. A lot of good folks. We are especially grateful for our speakers who are sharing their time with us, along with their wisdom, who you will be hearing from shortly. A couple of housekeeping notes. This webinar is being recorded and will be available to everyone who registered, and we will be uploading it to our YouTube page, so it'll be easily accessible from there as well. We will have time, hopefully, at the end for a Q&A, so please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen to add any questions that you have, and we'll do our best to track them and get to them with our time allotted. But before we begin, please join me in reading a land acknowledgement written by Vance Blackfox, who is the Desk Director for American Indian Alaska Native Tribal Nations for the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. We are gathered together in this virtual place from all parts of Turtle Island, connected by technology, faith, a common sense purpose, the breath given us by the breath maker who has named and called us here, and the very peace of Mother Earth, the land that each of us inhabits today. We understand the importance and necessity of acknowledging the land and the original indigenous peoples whose creation stories are rooted in these places and have lived on these lands throughout Turtle Island since time immemorial. We also understand that all land is indigenous land, and I invite each of you to name in the chat feature the indigenous peoples or tribal nations who were the first to love, pray, grow, celebrate, cry, drum, and sing upon the lands and places where you are located now. We know that indigenous peoples are not historical subjects, but part of our communities, churches, schools, and leadership, and that they offer invaluable wisdom for how we exist today and into the future in relationship with Mother Earth and our human and non-human neighbors. We are gathered here today in the spirit of celebrating Ocean Month, understanding that healthy and vibrant oceans aren't just for enjoying summer vacations, but rooted in the reality that healthy oceans are essential for our collective well-being. Tonight, we'll be learning about some of the threats impacting our oceans, while also learning about new opportunities for care and action together. To get us started, I am going to pass it over to Avery Davis-Lamb, the Executive Director for Creation Justice Ministries, to ground us in a theological faith framing as to why caring for the ocean is important and relevant to people of faith.
Thanks so much, Madison. And let me extend my welcome to you all as well. My name is Avery Davis-Lamb. As Madison said, I serve as the Executive Director of Creation Justice Ministries. And I want to start with a fun fact for you all today, which is that I grew up geographically as far from the ocean in the United States as you possibly can. So you're lucky that you get to hear the ocean intro from the guy who grew up in Kansas. But really, I grew up far from the ocean, both geographically and spiritually. But the thing is, I went to college near the ocean, and I loved looking out on the ocean, but I feared it. I was scared to get into it. I was used to prairies and not the huge and deep and unknown depths that I peered out upon. This all changed though when I went on a snorkeling trip to Santa Catalina Island off the coast of Southern California. And when I got under the water, I finally saw the world underneath. I saw the refracted blue brightness that was so different from the opacity, the opaqueness of the ocean that I saw from land. I entered this world that I didn't know was teeming with vibrant life, with sea bass and Garibaldi, with bat rays and kelp so much kelp. And I loved kelp because I'm a plant guy, and kelp looks like underwater plants. But the ecologists among us will know that actually I have since learned that kelp is not a plant. But still, it looked like plants, and I liked that. By dipping beneath the surface there on that snorkeling trip, I became an ocean lover. By entering into the world of those creatures, those fish and rays and that kelp, that changed the way that I move through my own world. When I go back to land, it changed the way that I move. I've come to see that moment as my moment of marine conversion. The Bible and our experience of God's creation tell us our God is a God who loves the ocean and who wants to see it protected. Right? What kind of God would create the Rice's whale or the Kemp's Ridley turtle if it weren't simply out of love and delight in those individual species and creatures? One of my favorite scriptures is the book of Job. Job is one of the oldest texts in the Bible. The book of Job is about a man who has weathered just about the worst traumas that life can throw at you. And there's a section in chapter 12 where, in response to bad advice from a so-called friend, Job seeks instead the wisdom of creation. Job says, "But ask the animals, and they will teach you, or the birds in the sky, and they will tell you, or speak to the earth, and it will teach you, or let the fish in the sea inform you. Which of all these does not know that the hand of the Lord has done this? In his hand is the life of every creature and the breath of all humankind. Let the fish of the sea inform you." That's some ancient wisdom. What would happen to us if we were to heed God's ancient command here? What might the fish of the sea inform us today? Well, unfortunately, we can't listen directly to the fish of the sea. Although I did recently hear of some of our friends who are working on interpreting whale calls for our understanding. But until they get that worked out, the best we can do is listen to those who listen to the fish most closely. Those who have entered into their world time and time and time again in order to learn about it, in order to love it more deeply, and in order to protect it. Those who have committed their lives to the study and the conservation of these sacred places so that these calls may continue to ring out. Those who we're going to hear from on this call today. Will you pray with me? Gracious and loving God, you are the creator of the heavens and the earth, of the mountains and the deserts, of rivers and forests and the vast, mysterious sea. Every creature that swims beneath the waves bears witness to your creativity and your delight. And the ocean is filled with life that praises you in ways we are only beginning to understand. As we continue together today, give us the humility that Job commends, the humility to be taught by your creation. Open our ears to what the fish of the sea would inform us. Open our hearts to receive the wisdom of those who have dedicated their lives to understanding and protecting these sacred waters. Help us to listen with curiosity, with compassion, and with wild hope. Amen.
Thank you, Avery, for that really meaningful reflection. Um, in recent months, we have heard new threats around deep sea mining for critical minerals and other purposes. Father John Sivalon with the Marino Office of Global Concerns is going to give us an overview of these threats, and hopefully, with proper and working functioning technology, we'll hear from Sister Angela Perez with the Sisters of Mercy in Guam, who will provide perspective on the issue from her community. John, I will pass it over to you.
Thank you, Madison, for the introduction. And also Thank you, Avery, for your opening prayer. And similar to you, I was not born near the ocean, but I wanted to begin this evening, first of all, by thanking all of those people who invited me to participate in this webinar. And I also want to thank all those who are here taking the time and for being concerned about the ocean, the source and nourishment of life. As Madison said, I'm Father John Sivalon, and for full disclosure, I am not a marine biologist, but I am someone who has firsthand knowledge of the destructive nature of mining, having been born and raised in Butte, Montana. I have seen how mining leaves a lasting scar on Mother Earth and on social and cultural networks. While the ocean was not a part of my childhood, I have come with a new passion to realize how essential, wondrous, and vital the ocean is, and how potentially destructive deep sea bed mining could be for our planet. If you look at the lasting effects of land mining, do we really want to do this to the ocean when we have no idea what the lasting effects could be? The ocean covers the vast majority of our planet, leading it to be called the blue planet by those who have viewed it from space. The ocean formed about 3.8 billion years ago as the planet cooled down, and it is where biological life truly began. If there is a Garden of Eden, it is likely at the bottom of the ocean. The ocean holds 97% of the Earth's water and contains roughly 90% of its biodiversity. Without the oxygen that the ocean provides, life on land wouldn't exist. And it is a massive carbon sink that helps slow the effects of human-caused global warming. And yet, we know so little about it. Around 80% of the ocean floor remains unmapped, and up to 91% of marine species remain unknown to us. The seabed is home to active communities of microbes that thrive in high-pressure anaerobic conditions without sun or oxygen. There are huge ecosystems even in the ocean's crust, much of which we still have no idea how they support not only marine life, but land life. Scientists themselves admit that we are still at the very early stages of understanding how all of these ocean ecosystems work together to produce the balance that allows us to live. Remember, this is the largest ecosystem on Earth, and it is a mystery still that we must protect. I would like to end this section by showing a short video to support these claims.
So they're typically ignored.
Microbes are arguably the most important form of life on our planet. They run the whole planet. They make it habitable. Half the oxygen that you breathe comes from microbes that live in the ocean. And those that live in the deep sea play an equally important role by providing nutrients to the microbes that live in the shallow water. My research lab and I are really interested in understanding how animals and microbes live in the deep sea. It's an environment that's very different from our own. We want to understand how organisms make a living in those environments and how they've adapted to life in this cold, dark world that's very foreign to us. Microbial mats look like biological carpets. When you go to the seafloor, they look like these fuzzy orange and white expanses. In fact, it's living organisms, a bunch of microbes that grow as colonies, layered one upon another to make these little villages of microbes. And they tell us something about what's going on in the seafloor beneath them. Some of those microbes tell us that there's methane and sulfide coming up from the seafloor. Those gases are produced by other microbes that are feeding on dead organic matter. So the microbes are kind of like the canaries of the deep sea, right? But when you find them, they kind of give you a clue as to what's going on, and they also tell you about the health of the ocean. Methane seeps are really an important part of the ecosystem. A lot of fish, including commercially relevant fish, seem to be relying on those seeps for something that we don't yet understand. Our studies of these deep sea microbes, in particular the rate measurements, that is looking at how fast they consume their foodstuffs, whether it's methane or sulfide, those measurements have told us that microbes are a lot more active on the seafloor than we thought. There's a lot of concern about methane in the deep ocean making it to the surface because methane's a greenhouse gas, but a lot of microbes eat that methane. And our studies have shown that microbes living in sediments can eat methane 10,000 to 1,000,000 times faster than we had thought. The truth is, we're just beginning to understand who's there and what they're doing. I mean, we're really at the beginning. So it's a really exciting time to be a marine microbiologist.
So clearly, when scientists say that they are just at the beginning of studying how all of these microbes might be working to allow for and nourish both marine and land life, the looming threat of deep seabed mining could be catastrophic. While various international measures exist to protect the ocean, the United States is unfortunately not a party to most of them, including the International Seabed Authority. While over 40 countries have called for a moratorium on deep seabed mining due to a lack of scientific understanding, recent executive orders of the present administration have opened the door for companies to begin exploitation. The head of the metals company, in his testimony to Congress, said, "There will be hardly any environmental damage by deep seabed mining, since there are no trees or forests or communities down there." Congressional bills are being discussed to speed up permitting for U.S. companies to operate in international waters as well as the waters within our own national jurisdiction. Think of the words, there will be no environmental damage. There will be no environmental damage flies in the face of what we have learned about the extractive industries on land and flies in the face of science. As I said, my concern comes from a deep personal understanding of what extractive industries can do. We are being asked now to industrialize with questionable technology that is unproven at commercial scale, the largest ecosystem on Earth before we understand how that ecosystem works. A study examining a 1979 deep sea mining test found the deep seabed had not recovered even after 44 years. Tests with modern nodule collection equipment show that a third of the life studied in the sediment around the mining tracks itself had disappeared. The mining waste discharged into the ocean as plumes is likely to disrupt mid-water ecosystems and the species that rely on them, with consequences for fish populations and carbon cycling. These waste plumes, as you see in the slide, are a planned part of the mining process. Further support for a moratorium on deep seabed mining is the track record of the company that is the most strongly promoting it. The CEO of TMC was a major investor of the Nautilus company that declared bankruptcy and walked away from Papua New Guinea, sticking them with a $72 million bill. As the Prime Minister said, it was a total failure. They were sold a bill of goods. Furthermore, in Europe, major global insurance companies and reinsuring companies have removed deep seabed mining from their portfolios, citing specifically the potential environmental damage it will cause. Following the precautionary principle in the Biodiversity Beyond National Jurisdiction Agreement, the burden of proof falls on the proponents for deep seabed mining to establish without doubt that their activities will not harm marine life or ecosystems. When in doubt, the principle claims you must err on the side of caution. And finally, I would like to introduce the next section of this webinar by this quote from the Special Rapporteur for the Human Right to a Clean, Healthy, and Sustainable Environment. Indigenous peoples, subsistent fishers, and small island developing states are heavily reliant on marine resources for food and livelihoods. They are thus particularly vulnerable to the impacts of deep sea mining, which threatens fisheries, a vital revenue source for island nations, contributing up to 84% of government revenue in the Pacific. And Guam is one of those islands presently under threat. Thank you.
Thank you, Father John. Now we will pass it to Sister Angela, who is joining us from her phone. Sister Angela, are you able to join us now?
I am able. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Thank you for being with us.
I'm not sure if you can see me. My video doesn't seem to be responding very well right now.
We can't see you, but your voice is the most important. We're so grateful to have you.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. I'm using a cell phone, so I'm a little challenged right now. I'm not at home. That's probably why. Thank you to everyone for providing this opportunity for us to speak on behalf of the ocean, particularly the Pacific Ocean. This is near the church in Oceania. I just want to test, am I all right? Are you hearing me all right?
Yes, we are hearing you.
Thank you so much. The church continent of Oceania covers Australia, New Zealand, Melanesia, and Micronesia, which includes Guam. This is a condensed version of my testimony opposing seabed mining, which I had submitted to the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, known as BOEM, Pacific Region Office of Strategic Planning, last December. The proposed seabed mining is near the ocean waters of Guam and the Northern Mariana Islands, the land area closest to the Mariana Trench. My legal name is Dolores Perez. I am known as Sister Angela, a Sister of Mercy. Earth is one of the critical concerns of the Sisters of Mercy. Just to apologize, I have a coughing occasionally intermittent, so please bear with me. As an Indigenous Chamorro and a Sister of Mercy, I write to strongly oppose seabed mining, especially near the islands of Guam and Rota. Among many issues of concern, seabed mining would destroy the marine ecosystems that our people on our islands rely upon. There are no economic reasons that can justify the destruction of the ocean and the subsequent harm that will affect our people in these communities. Imbued with the spirit and life of all living beings on land, sea, and sky, we are all created. We are connected to the spirit and life of all living beings on land, sea, and sky, all of creation, and our Creator. The people of the Mariana Islands should be included in any decision-making that affects them. Our voices should be heard. The time frame of 60 days for comments was still unreasonable. considering the magnitude of the decision-making on an issue that is the lifeline of the people of the Marianas. Moreover, Earth matters are all connected, so the impact affects not only the Mariana Islands, but also the entire global community. The ocean, as was referenced earlier, is a gift of God. The ocean is our source of food and recreation, a source of our spiritual and physical well-being. Fishing is integral to our life as Indigenous people of the Mariana Islands. On occasional walk along the beach, I would see fishermen with their rod and reels or throwing their nets for their catch of the day. Unfortunately, I no longer see the abundance and variety of fish near the shore. I remember clam digging with my family. Clam digging is non-existent. The traditional rabbit fish run, fish we call manahak run, has diminished. Mackerel catch used to be shared in abundance. Octopus dishes are rare at fiesta gatherings. Brent Trebet, a marine biologist with the Guam Department of Agriculture Division of Aquatic and Wildlife Resources, showed at a community meeting models demonstrating how reef fish born in the Marshall Islands and Federated States of Micronesia drift to the Marianas on currents that would carry them directly to the proposed mining area. Quote, these larval fish have to drift through clouds of sediment to get here. It absolutely will impact their ability to survive on the reefs here, Tibet said. The beach and vast ocean is a vital part of our recreation and healing. Families gather at the beachside to celebrate birthdays, reunions, weddings, or just enjoy being together near the beach. When recovering from illness, I would sit near the beach to enjoy the sea breeze, sunlight, beauty of the sky, and calming ambience to help with healing, rejuvenation, and a sense of wholeness. The ocean continues from generation to generation to be a source of inspiration, healing, wholeness, and connectedness. As was referenced earlier by Father Salvo, past mining globally, including in the Pacific area, such as strip mining on Nauru, uranium mining on Navajo Islands in the US, and copper and gold mining in Papua New Guinea, which left communities dealing with environment, health, and social consequences, has caused me to be alarmingly distrustful of future mining endeavors. I strongly object to any seabed mining. Guam and the rest of the Mariana Islands need the support of the global community, particularly the community in the US continent, where power and ownership reside. We, the people of the Mariana Islands, have voiced our opposition to the church in Oceania, the Archbishop of the Archdiocese of Agana, the governor of Guam, the Guam legislature, and passionate activists concerned ecclesial and civic organizations. Yet we are still collectively a tiny voice trying to make a difference in influencing the powers that reside in the US government and the big corporations. We need your help to counter their attempt in building their empire at the expense of the immediate extermination of our life in Guam and the rest of the Mariana Islands. Moreover, we are Earth, one Earth. Deep seabed mining will also cause a remote extermination that will affect everyone, all life. Earth will suffer. Let us rally together, our life-giving communion and participation to overcome the forces of destruction. Thank you very much, and in my language, Sizus Maasi.
Thank you so much for sharing, Sister Angela. It's a powerful testimony and witness, and we're so grateful for your voice and presence with us this evening, despite having a cough. So thank you for joining us. Now I will pass it over to Angelo Villagomez, uh, from the Center for American Progress to talk about the importance of marine national monuments and why they are at risk. Over to you, Angelo.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Angelo Villagomez, and I was born near the ocean. I was born in a village on an island next to the Mariana Trench. There we go. Lovely. My slides are up. I call Saipan, the largest island in the Northern Mariana Islands, my home. I am also Chamorro, and I was raised in the Catholic faith, which feels appropriate to share with this audience. But today I work for an organization in Washington, D.C. called the Center for American Progress. Can you click the next slide? Here, I'll just show you a picture of me as a kid. And I wish Sister Angela could see the screen because the gentleman on the far right is Father Pauly Jose Villagomez, who was my dad's brother. And she must have known him. Sadly, he passed away a few years ago. But can you just, I think if you click one more time. And here are just some pictures of the sorts of things I do as an adult. I am a professional ocean advocate working in Washington, D.C. and around the world. But I only have a few minutes for remarks, so I'm not going to talk about all that stuff. But I thought I would start with a story. Next slide. There we go. Thank you. In January 2007, which is almost 20 years ago, my friend Sinta Kaipat, a local elected official in Saipan and a family friend, invited me to a meeting in her office on Saipan's Capitol Hill with a man named Jay Nelsen from an organization I had heard of, but I didn't really know too much about it. It was called the Pew Trusts. Mr. Nelsen was from Alaska and had just recently worked on securing a large protected area in the northwestern Hawaiian Islands. It was so successful that Pew and its funders were looking for communities around the world that could model their ocean conservation after what had just happened in Hawaii. They were looking for places that were very large, historically mostly unfished, in a country with a history of conservation and with some hope of enforcement. We met with Mr. Nelsen for 2 hours that day. Now, the waters around the Marianas are indeed large, at over 1 million square kilometers, and we haven't had any large-scale commercial fishing in our waters for many decades. And we are a territory owned by, but not part of the United States. So for the most part, the same laws apply to us that apply in Hawaii. Not completely. Next slide. Sinta and I discussed this, and knowing what we know about our islands, suggested back then, now remember this was 2007, a lot has happened since then, we thought that protecting the waters around our northern sanctuary islands seemed reasonable. Pictured here is the island of Mog and me as a young man. We were very clear that we were only interested in the waters around the 3 far northern islands. And during the discussion, I pointed out that the northern portion of the Mariana Trench extended to this area. We agreed that the name Mariana Trench Marine National Monument was a very good name, and we parted ways with a commitment to continue the discussion. Next slide. And that conversation continued over the next 2 years. Sinta and I, with the support of our networks and families, and yes, Pew, put together this proposal that you see on the screen. A huge marine protected area taking up about 1/3 of the U.S. exclusive economic zone that would be off limits to industrial fishing and only allow indigenous fishing, which Sister Angela just talked about. Fishing is important to our culture, and it was important that our practices be allowed to continue. Next slide. We were joined by hundreds of ocean advocates in our community, and I won't list them all. We came together to form the Friends of the Mariana Trench, who led the public engagement in the community from the summer of 2008 until its designation in 2009. On the day of the monument's designation, after a public campaign to build support, Governor Fitial, Senate President Regis, and House Speaker Palacios announced their support for the designation of the monument. This was in large part due to the overwhelming local support at the time and the intense public campaign. Next slide. This is a picture of what we started with and what we got. The picture on the left shows what we initially proposed, and then what our community finally agreed to on the right-hand side. The differences in these two maps just show that there was a lot of community engagement and there was compromise on both sides. Slide. Now, there's a much longer discussion about the monument to be had here. I've written and spoken about its strengths and weaknesses and shortcomings at great length over the last 20 years. But today, I'm happy that there were finally staff and an office on Saipan conducting programs with our community. There's a visitor contact station in Garapan, and a management plan was published in 2024. And I had the honor to introduce the Secretary of Interior when she made the public announcement. Other communities around the country have similar stories. I mentioned already the monument in Hawaii, and there are 3 others. Today, the United States has 5 marine national monuments, all designated or expanded or rolled back or reinstated between '06 and today. When the Biden administration announced that the United States had protected about 1/3 of US oceans, these 5 monuments were doing about 99% of that work. The communities attached to these places, these monuments, are very proud of the work they've put in to protect these places. The big lesson I've learned over 20 years is that conservation takes a long time, and it takes a lot of effort, and it takes a lot of people. All right, so that was 3 lessons, but who's counting? Next slide. One more slide. There we go. But that progress is now under threat. Following the re-election of Donald Trump, the administration has moved to roll back protections for all 5 of these monuments. These areas are now subject to regulatory challenges and legal disputes that threaten their very existence. The Trump administration is attempting to open the entirety of the Northeast Canyons and Seamounts Monument in New England and the Atoll Monument in American Samoa, and then vast portions of the Mariana Trench, the Pacific Remote Islands, and the Papaha monuments, opening them to industrial fishing. This is the combined area of 2.3 million square kilometers. It's twice the size of Greenland that's being stripped of its protections. Our communities have responded with great disappointment. Guam Senator Chris Barnett told media, "It's disappointing to see the rollback of protections like these, but what really looks like partisan and political reasons." Massachusetts Senators Elizabeth Warren and Ed Markey put out a joint statement. It said, "President Trump's rollback of protections goes against clear legal precedent, creating the risks and uncertainty, both legal and environmental, that have been hallmarks of his administration." The American Samoa delegate to the US Congress released a statement saying she remains convinced that Rose Atoll should be off limits, her longstanding position, especially as she respects the cultural rights of the people of Manua. And then in Hawaii, Kekuewa Kikiloi, a prominent scientist and cultural leader, said President Trump's most recent proclamation undermines 2 decades of public and stakeholder effort to protect this special region of Hawaii. Now, for Pacific Remote Islands and Northeast Canyons and Seamounts, our partners have already filed lawsuits against these actions. Our communities are ready to defend these places, not just because they are legally protected, but because we have a moral obligation to protect these sacred sanctuaries for generations to come. We will not stand by. Our partners are already filing suit, and our message is clear. Mr. Trump, we'll see you in court. Thank you very much. And I see in the chat that Sister Angela remembers Polly Jose and the family. So great to be on a call with you today. And I watched you give that testimony a few months ago, by the way, on YouTube.
Thanks, Angelo. Love the connections here. We're gonna pass it next to our final speaker, Beth Remmes from Georgia Interfaith Power and Light, who's going to be talking to us about the ongoing work to protect the Blake Plateau. And if I may just circle back to the beginning of our discussions around deep sea mining, the report that Father John quoted about the deep sea mining that was done over 70 years ago, in the 70s, that demonstrated that the harms caused from that experiment demonstrated that that area hadn't recovered was actually near the Blake Plateau. So coming back to finish telling that story, and Beth can give more context as to what's going on there. So Beth, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Madison. And thank you to our speakers who were like amazing with your time. So I'm not rushed. Still not going to try to take up too much time, but I have a few video clips that I'm going to put into this because it just is a lot more interesting to actually see it. So the moment of truth here, when we go to do the screen sharing, let's just see how this works. Okay. So I will be talking about the Blake Plateau. Actually, I think I did not do sound, which is the world's largest known deep sea coral habitat. As Father John said, we are still learning, so there could be other ones out there. We just don't know about it yet. So what we know, this is the largest one, and I'm just gonna play about a minute of this so you can see it and hear a little bit about it.
Given the proximity of so many millions of people that live along the southeast coast, it seems that, of course, this area would be very well known and we would know exactly where everything is, and that's so not true.
Pilot, are you ready to continue descent?
Pilot's ready.
We are out on the Blake Plateau off the coast of the southeast United States, ranging essentially from Cape Hatteras all the way down to the Bahama Banks off the coast of Florida.
Previously to the Okeanos coming out here and mapping more of this flat part of the Blake Plateau, this was all kind of originally just thought to be soft sediment. But these mound features really do shed light on how prolific these cold water coral communities are. One thing I think we can talk about a little bit is how the live coral is actually white in this type of environment, so these are actually live and healthy. I'm not speechless, obviously, because I keep talking, but this is, for me, really, really exciting.
The Million Mounds region is what we think is the largest continuous deep-sea coral ecosystem discovered thus far on Earth. We're talking about an area about 7 million acres.
Okay, so I'm going to show you where that is on the map. That video, by the way, is available on YouTube, and we can share the links after this. But just to give you a sense of where the Blake Plateau is, it's about 80 to 200 miles off the southeast coast of the United States. It lies at a depth of about 500 meters, and that's a little over 1,640 feet. And then inshore sloping to about 1,000 meters or over 3,000 feet at the deep basin. So the plateau contains a number of neighborhoods. As you heard them mention, the Million Mounds is one of the biggest, and that's what you saw in the video. In that, there's structures that can be as tall as a Statue of Liberty. Among the most striking is what scientists believe is this coral highway. So that's about 200 miles from Georgia to Florida. The plateau also contains other important deep sea coral areas, including the Central Blake Knolls and the Stetson-Richardson Complex. It also, as you can see this little slide here on the right, it does hold cultural and spiritual significance for the Gullah Geechee people, as it is an ancestral resting place for those enslaved relatives who did not survive the crossing of the Blake Plateau that would have been part of the Middle Passage. So this is a deeply spiritual place as well. And it is important. I mean, as we talk about extraction, you know, it just shows the whole lineage of that. Although it's at the bottom of the sea, this deep coral province is not an isolated ecosystem. It's fueled by the Gulf Stream and fosters a dynamic ocean ecosystem from the surface to the seabed. At the surface, large fish like swordfish and marlin ride the Gulf Stream in search of food, and sea turtles spend the early portion of their life in the sargassum seaweed, feeding and hiding from predators. Seafaring birds forage the Gulf Stream waters, taking advantage of the productive environment. Here are some other little critters down below. These forests of Lophelia provide habitat structure and that diverse community of unusual deep sea animals, including 200 species of coral, like the one on the top left, and similar animals like sea pens, that's the top right, and close to 100 species of fish. We have the red anglerfish down here and the Bathosaurus, which like sounds prehistoric. It's a deep sea lizard. And then we have also like this flapjack devilfish top left and the squid, bobtail and sponges and squat lobsters. So it's like incredible wonderment and diversity of nature. And this just gives you a little hint of what is down there. One of the most important things about this coral mound are the fact that it nutrient cycles. So in addition to providing the habitat, it consumes organic matter that rains down from the ocean's surface and recycles it into essential nutrients that are then pushed back up in the ecosystem. Again, thank you to other speakers who left me enough time. This is again just a really short video, but it explains it so well because honestly, this is so crucial to all marine life. This is such a nutrient factory, and it's really worth. This will explain it better than I could.
For centuries, people assumed there was no life at the bottom of the ocean. Although scientists have known that there were some deep-sea corals on the Blake Plateau, they were in for a deep-sea surprise. When mapping from Cape Hatteras to the Bahama Banks was completed in 2021, the results showed the largest deep-sea coral system discovered thus far on planet Earth. Scientists say the corals that comprise this area could be between 300,000 and possibly up to 2 million years old. They may have been alive longer than our species has been on planet Earth. While they're hidden from sight, these corals do a lot for our oceans and for us, as they can store a lot of carbon. Deep-sea corals don't photosynthesize, unlike their shallow water relatives. They feed on the remains of marine life that sinks to the ocean floor over time and occasionally snack on organisms that migrate vertically in the water column. Corals also process nutrients. Lophelia, the coral that forms the reef, have bacteria in the mucus on the outside of their bodies that transforms waste into nitrate, an essential nutrient needed to fuel the marine food chain. The Gulf Stream's rapid flow carries water that has traveled through the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean over the Blake Plateau, where it brings nitrate recycled by these reefs out into the North Atlantic. Scientists think it contributes significantly to the food webs that support commercially important fisheries. Deepwater corals, like those of the Blake Plateau, are vital parts of the global ocean ecosystem.
So in addition to supporting this variety of marine life, the ecosystems of the Blake Plateau provide numerous services that benefit society as well. Some scientists believe that the harsh conditions of the deep sea, with its high pressure, absence of light, and cold temperatures, provide a Noah's Ark of genetic resources that can be used to create novel compounds for new pharmaceutical innovations. Ocean life is increasingly a source of medical discoveries, contributing to new drugs that treat everything from cancer to heart disease to Alzheimer's. One of the medicines used to treat individuals with COVID-19 comes from sea sponges. Deep-sea corals and sponges have produced scientific and technological innovations, including models for artificial synthesis of human bones. As our oceans warm, these deeper areas serve as an important refuge for deep-sea coral species, potentially securing their lifelong survival. And this landscape is largely pristine, which is great. Like how often do we in conservation get to say, like right now it's okay, and it is protected, but there are some threats that are imminent, possibly, unless we are able to really have some durable protections. So just a few of the ones I'll just mention quickly: industrialization, that can be everything from like carbon sequestration to drilling, oil, gas exploration. Deep sea mining has come up. As Madison said, this was a site in the 70s that was explored. Thankfully, the manganese nodules were not to be high quality, and so probably the return on investment would never work out for that, but it could still be used exploratory to test machinery. I mean, who knows, right? Without the protections, what could happen? Again, the oil and gas development is always a possibility. It's probably too deep right there, but even if it was a little bit further in, it could spill and ruin, really harm that ecosystem. Commercial fishing, much of the Blake Plateau is not actually used right now for fishing, so we really hope that it would not affect industries too much. But there are some things, again, just to be proactive to hope that there's not like long lining and things or trawling that could destroy the coral. Again, we never know. We don't know what could be drained up that could possibly harm the area. So these are just some other, you've probably heard a lot about carbon sequestration possibilities, again, that could affect the ecosystems. So despite the diversity in the waters off the southeast coast, currently less than 1% of our waters here are conserved. The Blake Plateau is protected until about 2032. But, you know, these new threats are emerging daily. We know more about this ecosystem than ever before, but there's so much we have not seen. Unlike a land monument, you can't visit a deep sea coral reef, so it can be more difficult to build support and enthusiasm for protections. Sufi poet Rumi writes, "Everything you see has its roots in the unseen world." 1 Corinthians 5:7 instructs us to walk by faith, not by sight. And 2 Corinthians 4:18 tells us that the things that are unseen are eternal. The Blake Plateau itself invites us to deepen our love and understanding of God's creation and compels us to protect that which we cannot see. So let us reflect on our shared responsibility to protect the ocean's vast and mysterious depths. Our faith calls on us to be stewards of God's creation, ensuring that the Blake Plateau remains a thriving sanctuary for the countless species that depend on it. Together, we can make a difference preserving this magnificent ecosystem for generations to come. There's more at gipple.org or Conserve the Blake Plateau if you want to sign a petition, and be sure to be alerted as developments happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Such a great story and a highlight of something positive that's happening right now that we can all get involved in. We unfortunately are out of time and don't have time for questions and answers. But that's what happens when you have an amazing group of panelists sharing great experience, sharing their knowledge and wisdom and expertise. We're so grateful for them for joining us this evening. We will be sending a follow-up email, so if you have any questions on your mind or that come up later, please don't hesitate to reach out. We can be sure to follow up with that information, and would love to stay in touch regarding some of these campaigns. But now to close, I would love to invite Blair Nelson, Executive Director of Water Spirit, a sponsored ministry of the Sisters of St. Joseph of Peace, to lead us in a closing prayer.
Thank you, Madison, and thank you to all of our amazing speakers who are here tonight, and for all of our participants who came to hear the important messages that everybody brought to this conversation. To close us out tonight, I'll be sharing a reflection called Wondrous Water by Mary Frances Reyes, BBM. Close your eyes and take a few deep breaths. Become conscious of the saliva in your mouth, the moisture on the palms of your hand, the wetness of your tears. Our bodies are mostly water. Now see with your mind's eye. Once each of us floated around as embryonic selves in the sea of our mother's wombs, our lungs filled with the fluid. Water moves in and out of each one of our cells every moment of every day. The water we drink unites us with the sacred earth as intimately as the air we breathe. The water around us and the water in us are united in a wondrous continual cycle, evaporated from the oceans by the sun, condensing as clouds, and returning through rivers to the sea, passing on the way through countless animals, plants, and our own bodies. The natural cycle processes a regular trickle that is available for human life. It is transferred from ocean to the sky and back to the land. That trickle allowed life on land to evolve and allows human life to survive. Each of us contributes to this trickle about 1 liter a day, just through our breath and sweat. The earliest life forms, our most ancient ancestors, developed in the sea. The mineral makeup of our blood and the salty taste of our tears are closely related to that of seawater, reminders of our marine evolutionary birth. The sea carries us through an eternal cycle. All in the end returns to the sea. It is the beginning and the end. Return your attention now to the natural rhythm of your breath and take a few more moments to sit with this awareness of how water unites us all in the community of life. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great night, and we'll be in touch.